Okay, here we go. And we're live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame. We're going to be talking about toward individualistic reproduction, solving the fertility crisis could require a further marginalization of men. It's a paper from Cambridge University Press. What is this? Like a scientific study?
Yeah, well,
And
what it does is it looks at the difference between stated fertility, which is above replacement. So women generally state that they want to have 2.4 children, and then they end up having 1.4. And so they're looking at this gap and they're saying, why does this gap exist? Well, obviously, it's because of men. Let's
yeah,
blame men. Men aren't doing something, or they are doing something, but let's just do that. Let's just do
oh,
the standard maneuver, because that's
yeah,
worked so well in creating the crisis in the first place. So let's just apply more. The fire has grown large and is threatening to consume our entire species. Let us put more gasoline upon it. Surely that will put it out. That's
yeah.
always worked in the past to increase the rate of burn, but surely this time it will work.
You can drown it out in
Yeah,
gasoline. Don't you
exactly.
know?
Just drown the fire. Just, putting gasoline on the fire made it bigger, but surely if we put more, it eventually will drown it out, and then we won't have any more fire, and everything will be solved. And, because you know why they make these mistakes? Because all of their solutions land on blame men.
Yeah.
Like every one of them,
It's a flow
all of
chart
them.
with one direction on it. Thing
Yes.
happens, blame men.
Yeah, exactly. If the problem is blaming men, blame men some more.
Yeah.
Everything goes to that point, always. I think if anybody who's watched us long enough has seen how many times we've pointed this out. It is across the institutional spectrum. Everything lands on this. Everything. And I mean, there's maybe a reason for it, beyond the ideological, because generally when you have a problem, you do have to have men solve it, or men generally are the ones who do solve it. So,
Check
for
out the hook
example,
while my DJ revolves it. Sorry, I couldn't help myself.
okay, but in this case, it's like it is yeah, it's just the eternal maneuver that never ends, and we never consider doing something else aside from it, except here on this venerable channel, where we discuss the things that nobody apparently can even conceive of or allow enter a single memo upon their desk, which is, maybe let's not blame men, and in fact let's consider blaming the group of people that explicitly said they wanted to destroy human reproduction and then proceeded to do so. Like, could we just maybe take a look at them and see if they might be a little bit culpable in all of this? Like literally we had a gigantic ideology that said heterosexuality is the site of women's oppression, let's kill it. And then subsequently our birth rates declined. Maybe there's a connection. Could we entertain the possibility? No. Perish the thought. Let's blame men some more. Okay. All right, so that's what this paper does essentially. Although it does correctly identify the gap between what women say they want in terms of children and what they actually end up having, which is interesting, because that means
Yeah.
there's a whole lot of unhappy women, presumably, if they're not getting what they want. Um, and our society has constructed that. So, do you want me to read a summary,
Do the
or shall
things
we just?
first.
Oh, right, yes, the things. I'm like squirreling all over the place, and I forgot to do the things. Okay, so
I can read the abstract and then
yes,
do the summary.
that is an excellent plan. So if you would like to send a message at any point throughout the show, please go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip and send in a tip. And with that tip, you can send a message. It's the best way for you to send us a message because, let's face it, YouTube's comment enhancement system is anything but. It doesn't really enhance your comments. It just segregates them. And, nobody wants segregation of comments. There's a word for that. It's censorship. So go to feedthebadger.com/justthetip and free your comments, free your cosmic wisdom, send it to us, and we get the full benefit of whatever funds you send. So there's that. And if you want to read more of my more like organized thoughts, you can go to badgernation.online for now until I actually get off my ass and create some kind of like email list. So anyway, badgernation.online, it'll take you to our Discord where you can find my channel where I put my thoughts in a more bullet point form, like organized
Yeah.
chapters, subheadings, that kind of thing. Okay, let's do the abstract.
Okay. So, toward individualistic reproduction, solving the fertility crisis could require a further marginalization of men. Published by the Cambridge University Press. Abstract. The cross-national correlation between gender equality and lower fertility is exceptionally strong. After the 1960s, a unique mating regime spread across parts of the world, with female emancipation, individual mate choice, and effective birth control, followed by a continuing rise in singlehood and declining fertility. Almost all women still want to reproduce, but many struggle to find a good enough partner. This article argues from an evolutionary perspective that many men's utility to free women has been so diminished that solving the fertility crisis by increasing pair bonding rates seems unfeasible. A viable means for aiding the survival of low fertility nations could be to provide women with the economic and social resources necessary for them to conclude that having children alone makes for a better life than remaining childless. Such policies would likely exacerbate male marginalization, but new technologies are on the horizon that could offer men reproductive equality. So that's the summary. Do you guys need this rephrased so you guys know what it says in layman's terms?
Please rephrase it so
Well,
we all understand.
essentially, they're saying that so we did all this stuff for equality, right? Now, we have birth control, we have liberated women, we've given them the option of choosing their mate because, apparently historically they were just chained to a man.
No.
And well, that's what the claim is, though. I'm just reading the claim.
I know.
Okay. And so like women have we've finally done it. We've done it. We've liberated women, okay? And now as we get more and more equality, people are having fewer kids. What's the problem? Well, apparently, despite the fact that almost all women want to reproduce, they can't find a partner that's good enough. So the men are the problem because they're not making enough money or they're not good enough for these liberated women now. And what the argument the article is going to make is that because women are so free now that solving the problem by essentially increasing pair bonding, so basically getting men and women to work together to build families, that's undoable. We can't do it because the women don't want them. So instead, what we're going to do is we're just going to give more money to women, because essentially they say, well, if we give them enough economic and social resources, then they can just raise kids without men. So that's basically what it is. And so this could, they say, oh, this could mess with men because now they're not only do they not have a woman in their life, but they don't even have their own families
or money.
And so or money, right? But there'll be technologies. Something will happen. Someone will rise and give them technology that will finally offer them reproductive equality, whatever that is.
The sex bot revolution.
Yeah.
The sex bot plus artificial womb revolution, which won't itself be impeded by political interests that always impede anything that benefit men. That's it. Yeah. The problem is that women don't like men, so let's marginalize men further down the chain by taking their money away and giving it to women, and that'll solve everything. Okay, it won't. Literally, this is absolute nonsensical thinking. And generally, when a group of people start saying, what we need to solve this problem is to take money from group A, for the government to take money from group A to give it to group B. Generally, they have no interest in solving the actual problem. But even if they did, and their solution was genuine, it would make it worse. And the reason why it would make it worse is that, and this is my hypothesis, the pair bond comes before the children. So with literally a pair bond or a bond with a male partner is the precondition for women to turn that vague desire, that vague affiliative desire for 2.4 Hallmark babies into an actual 2+ children. Right? So you have to get women pair bonded first. And one of the reasons why I say that is because the fertility crisis isn't a crisis of married women's fertility. Once women are married, they have approximately the same number of children as they ever had since basically birth control equalized. So in the 90s, in the early 90s, married women topped out about 2.1, 2.5 children, and they have not declined since. So married women continue to have the same amount of children that they have had for 30 years, 30 plus years. And then the amount of children that they have is at replacement. So in other words, if we had marriage rates of the 70s, the 60s and 70s, we'd be fine. Mm-hmm. So if women were in long-term relationships with men, we would be fine in terms of our birth rate. What's increasing, or what's cratering the birth rate, is the increase of single women, period. And single women used to have they didn't have as many children as married women ever, but they used to have some, and now they're having less and less and less and less. So you can divert funds to make women single forever and allow them to exist in that, but you are not going to get babies out of that. What you are is going to get an increasingly cratered birth rate. So what they're suggesting won't just not reverse the birth rate, it will increase the decline. The more you pay women to essentially stay away from men, the more you crater the birth rate. And the whole discussion around this, that women are finally able to be free of men, as if men were some burden that women have had throughout all of human history, which incidentally is absolute nonsense. Okay, like there's no reason the co-evolved half of the other half of your species is a burden. That's ridiculous. But regardless, that the whole narrative is that women are no longer burdened with men. Therefore, men have to be some other thing in order to attract women. And apparently that other thing is have a sociopathic personality style, but that's another story, right? That's all balderdash. Stop allowing women to substitute men in their lives, to substitute a second co-parent and a second co-parent's resources, and encourage women to form bonds with men again. And one way you could do this, which is what nobody wants to even acknowledge, much less suggest, is maybe you stop promoting an ideology that turns heterosexuality into a status contest with women always losing. Okay, so that heterosexuality is the source of women's oppression. You take something that is, in every religious tradition, is a sacrament, and every philosophical tradition is the foundation of society, and based on evolution is why we exist in the first place. You take the site of that and you turn it into the most debased status contest, battle, fight that it was never intended to be, and then you essentially ward women away from it. Because what ends up happening is when you tell this to women, when you tell men or women that, getting in a relationship with a man is losing yourself, is you're constantly going to be subordinate, you're going to be we erased as a person. Everything is about status jockeying and making sure you get your bag. And we got to make sure we got to audit every minute everybody spends on the relationship to make sure it's equal, right? Bringing that whole like that whole baggage of equality versus inequality into that space, that relationship that's foundational to everything we enjoy as human beings, destroys it. Flat out destroys it. And the funny thing is that women's desires for a partner that makes more than them hasn't changed. Women still want what it actually does is it introduces toxic levels of hypergamy. So women still want a partner that earns more, that has more status, but now they want even more, right? So they can't, it's not, there's no, a co-parent is no longer good enough. They need Christian Grey. So ironically, by introducing this status contest into the relationship, you turn women from women who want to co-create a family and a legacy with men into women who insist that the only man who is deserving of their submission, which this never was, or their subordination, which this never was about, is Christian Grey, a freaking billionaire, right? The 666 man. So all of this comes from commodifying and turning the relationship between men and women into a status competition and talking about it in terms of equality. Just even bringing in the whole notion that we can judge this relationship in terms of equality is absurd. It destroys it. It's like talking about judging your kidneys versus your liver in terms of equality. We need to make their functions equal. We need to remove the status jockeying between the kidneys and the liver. You know what that ends up with? That ends up with death. All right? It's absurd.
Yep.
And maybe we could start, in reversing this by simply getting rid of this ideology. Simply getting rid of the notion that heterosexuality is a status competition between men and women. And that even anybody, any Susan Brown Miller or Andrea Dworkin or whatever good feminist you want to point to, because everybody's like, oh, well, the second wave, they were the good feminists. No, they weren't. Any one of those women you want to point to who just steps into something that used to be sacred, or at least respected as foundational, and starts throwing around bullshit about how it's really about oppression of women, yeah, just kick them out. Kick them out of pedagogy, kick them out of academia, kick them out of teaching children, kick them out of the government, kick them out of everywhere. And then see if the birth rate starts to improve. But no, we can't do that. We absolutely can't do that. Nobody can even talk about it. Let's talk about replacing people, like when the birth rate craters in 20 years. Let's talk about immigration. Hey, let's just bring in people from cultures. But the problem with that is, of course, once they come here, they inherit our sterility. So we're eventually, like, by importing people from other cultures, the West is ensuring the sterility of the human race. But let's not talk about that, right? No. Let's do that. Or how about option B? Let's replace everybody with AI and robots. Hey, that makes more sense, right? Or option C, let's grow people in vats and institutionalize human reproduction. Let's completely divorce it from individual choice and just make everybody in a tube, right? Yeah, that's option C. What about option D? Nobody wants to talk about option D, which is keeping Africa poor so they continue to give birth. But Bill Gates is certainly pursuing that option really hard. Yeah, he's definitely keeping Africa poor. All right, so those are our 4 options that our big brain billionaires have arrived upon for us. Like, they all know that this is a problem. They're all seeking out a solution to it. And those are our options, but none of them include, maybe Andrea Dworkin was wrong. Maybe the greasy, self-hating whale had nothing good to say about human bonding. Maybe the fem cells, we shouldn't listen to them. Maybe, maybe. Nobody wants to do that. All of these billionaires, these powerful men, they cannot stand up to these women and their
Hmm.
legacy. They can't call it out. For all their power, they can't actually call out the real problem. They can't even mention it. Like, even Elon Musk can't even talk about this, honestly. None of them can. None of them can actually talk about the actual problem and where it originates. But they all can say that this is a problem. They can all see the problem. They just can't identify the solution, or they can't at least identify what the problem is downstream of. Yeah, then it takes a small YouTube channel, such as ourselves, to do this thing, this remarkable and difficult thing. All right, let's continue.
I already read the abstract. You were going to read like a summary or something?
Oh, okay, sure. Well, I could read
Yeah.
an analysis, but maybe we should leave that for the end. Let's keep going. Just keep
Well,
reading.
do you want me to just read more of, because now I'm in the introduction. Do you want me to read that? Or,
Sure.
all right.
This
Okay.
may take a while, but
I did get a super chow. I'm going to read really quick
cool.
from Hula Troopa. This was yesterday at 9:43. $10 says just paying Allison's woman consultation fees. Okay. All right. Let
Thank
us
you.
continue. Yep. Introduction. The relationship between the fertility crisis and our era's marginalization of some groups of men is poorly understood. Over the past decades, researchers have documented how many men are falling behind in terms of education, professional performance, mental health, and other social and economic indicators, but mostly without investigating the psychological causes of the marginalization. In Norway, one of the world's most gender progressive nations, politicians have tried to understand this concerning development through three government appointed committees, but these failed to identify the underlying drivers or which policies could effectively counter the trend. Oh, you're saying the government couldn't solve a problem that is not something that a government could solve? They couldn't just create the policy that makes things better? The make it work policy? They couldn't pass that? Okay. In the same period as men in many nations became more marginalized, fertility rates plummeted. The Nordic nations were anomalies, often attributed to their gender equality and generous family policies, but they too are now headed towards demographic collapse. In the 2010s, Norway's rate fell from 2.0 to 1.5 and continued falling. Nations like Norway and England, with a rate of 1.4, will see their cohort size reduced by a third for each generation, barring effects of immigration. And they have like a figure, but for some reason, I can't see it. I don't know what's going on with that. I don't know what this is.
Again,
Oh, here it is.
regardless of what you think of immigration in terms of your politics, immigration just ensures that the entire world is sterilized. Right? Because
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing is you're importing people from places that still have replacement level reproduction, which now isn't even East Asia. Like, India has fallen below replacement. China's well below. Right? Most of East Asia, right? So now we're just looking at the sub-Saharan Africa, and they are following. Their trajectory is downward too. So you import people from places that are still reproducing, and within 3 generations, their reproduction is at or below the host country's reproduction. So what you're doing by importing people is sterilizing the entire human race. Right? Not a good long-term strategy. Regardless, it doesn't solve the problem. So why do it? Why not solve the problem? And the funny thing is they lay out exactly what's happened. And they do it in terms that are extremely ambiguous. No, they do it in terms that are extremely camouflaged. They say the marginalization of men. Well, how did the marginalization of men occur? Well, I'll tell you how it occurred. It occurred by a bunch of ideologues saying that heterosexuality is the site of women's oppression, which turns what men offer women into something that is unwanted. Like, why would you want a relationship with an oppressor? And the relationship you have with them is the site of your own oppression, right? That's what marginalizes men. That's what undersells men as partners, and also workers, and also students, and employees, and leaders, and everything, of course. But in particular, it undersells them as partners of women. So now, in order to have a woman, a man can't be just like, well, I offer a relationship with myself, because that is now degraded. That is the site of his oppression of her, which is the worst thing that a man could offer a woman. So any relationship a man offers a woman is the worst thing he could offer a woman. What a surprise that women no longer want to get in relationships with men unless they have so much more to offer than just themselves as a co-partner in in paddling the boat of life. Right? Do you see how that works, and where
Yeah.
the marginalization comes from? And they're just like, oh wow, this marginalization, it just landed. Maybe it came from an asteroid or sorry, a meteorite hitting the Earth. Maybe it's some kind of disease that came
They
up
must
from
be
the
doing it to
ocean floor.
themselves.
Yes,
They're other
exactly.
men must be responsible.
Yeah, where did this marginalization come from?
Yeah.
God damn. Okay.
All right, I got a super chat from Gary Thomas for $5. Thank you, Gary Thomas. And he says, whenever I'm feeling down, I watch a YouTube channel called Mom of Six Japan. It's just about a Japanese man and woman being a family with their kids. Oh man, that sounds really oppressive. And then he gives another $5 and says, now I always say her thing activated when I watch the channel. You know, the chemicals in the female brain Allison always talks about. Yeah, it's kind of like what when the OnlyFans thoughts are playing like Pragmata and they see like the cute interactions with the android and they're like, oh my God, I want a baby. But
It doesn't go
again,
anywhere.
the desire to have children is not really gone away. They just don't, they're, I don't know, conditioned to not
Not
find men
activated.
appealing or something. But
Oh,
yeah,
this is the thing. From my analysis, again, a bond with a man is necessary. Like it is, if you don't have it, you are not going to actualize that 2.4 children in any capacity. The bond comes first. That's what I'm finding from my research. And in particular, you need like it seems like some kind of survival threat or some kind of survival stress is necessary to even activate the precondition for women to bond.
yeah,
So it's, and again, those cultures that lived closest to survival seem to be aware of this on an intuitive sense, and they provided the stress to young women when they had gone through puberty in order to activate that V1A cross activation that I keep talking about. The brain hormones, get them circulating towards an adult end. And but we don't do that anymore. We overcorset women. We treat them like glass. And I think you said we should have a bullet point in Plan 22, was it? Or
hmm?
Project 22. Project 22, or is it Plan 22? It's the thing that, remember Natty was hysterical about like
Oh,
2 or 3 years
Project
ago?
2025.
Yeah,
Project
Project 20.
2025.
Yeah, we should have a bullet point where all girls need to go through like some kind of initiation that involves
Yeah, yeah,
either,
yeah.
yeah,
Like basically the coming of age rituals. Like they need something
yeah,
like that for women.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And we were talking about Girl Scouts, and I said that it would, if it was Girl Scouts, it would have to be the most metal Girl Scouts ever.
Yes. Yeah, they'd have to be really, really hardcore Girl Scouts. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
So should I keep? I'm gonna keep going then, huh?
Yep.
Okay. Here we go. So this is the chart here, and I don't know, why is the wait? Hold on a second. Check, 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 check. Okay. Reduction. This is the chart we were just talking about. Okay. So continuing. This reduction rate depends on whether the afflicted nations can prevent further decline, but many experts believe fertility rates could continue to drop. If these nations catch up with South Korea, which in 2012 had a rate similar to Norway's current rate, They will have 99% fewer children in only 4 generations. However, how far these numbers will drop is uncertain. South Korea's situation is unprecedented. Yeah, but they're ahead of the curve, is how I would see it. It's not like an anomaly, but I don't think these people are ready for that conversation. I got another super chat from Senior Sticks. He says the answer is government intervention. Second, this is for the Chicago deep dish pizza, Brian, for which to share with those in the Badger Cave for $5. Thank you. I'm not in Chicago, but I appreciate it. I moved to Virginia in 2020, so I can't get deep dish anymore. But I appreciate it. Maybe one day. All right. Anyway, demographic experts have primarily explained the fertility crisis in terms of economic costs, changing values, institutional arrangements of affecting work-family balance, and shifts in gender roles. They have been less focused on psychological causes and mating market dynamics and are yet to offer credible policy solutions. Again, there's no policy solution for this. One thing is, though, I would say, like, dating apps, they have to go. Like, I don't care how. Somebody in the chat mentioned earlier the government should make a dating app. No, that's ridiculous. Dating apps are absolute cancer. They are part of where women get their sense of entitlement. Imagine being a woman and you're absolutely like mid, okay? And you get on a dating app and you get spammed by multiple dudes that are just like different varying levels of thirst, which is it's the other side of the coin, but that, like, all of that attention you're getting from that app is going to make you think that you're worth a lot more than you are, and it's going to give you a distorted sense of self. So no, dating apps are absolute cancer. That's not the solution. I think it's like, go outside, go somewhere where you can meet someone, and start by making friends with men. I don't know. That's my opinion, but anyway. So
Yes, actually, that's
what?
that's actually a really good idea. But if there's a government policy, it would be to stop the current government interventions of promoting a particular ideology. Just stop. Just stop
Yeah.
it. Just stop promoting feminism. Well, I'm going to label it outright. Just stop promoting the idea that heterosexuality is a status contest, because that's not what it is. And start being honest to women about what they're foregoing by not pairing up with their looks match. Right? There's aspects to being in a bonded relationship that you cannot get from casual sex. Right? And there is this aspect that they constantly talk about being seen. The only way a woman is seen is in a bonded relationship with a man. Like, they're constantly talking about that. And if you actually look at what they're talking about, this idea of being fully recognized, well, where does that come from? Being recognized as an individual, being desired as an individual. You're not going to get it from your relational web, from your sisters. You're from a lesbian relationship. You're not going to get it from Chad on a freaking dating app. You're going to get it from a man who is pair bonded to you, whose dopagenic reward system is recruited by your specific partner targeted stimuli. Like, I know that sounds really mechanistic, but another word for that would be love. Right? It's you become a reward, a dopagenic reward for another human being. Right? That is being seen. That is having somebody see your particular nature and qualities and love them. And you can only get that from a man.
Yeah.
Because men are the only ones who really have that depth of specificity. Like that obsession with the specific. That's a male trait. Like the autistic guy with the trains, that's an obsession with the specific.
Mm-hmm.
Newton is an obsession with the specific. The Great Indoors sent me a video of I think a Norwegian scientist or Swedish scientist or mathematician who spent decades solving one particular mathematical problem. That is an obsession with the specific. That only comes from men. So being seen, this lauded thing that all the relational web thinkers are constantly on about, they can only get it from men. And you can only get it from a specific man, because a man who is just like you were talking about, those guys who are thirsty and they're all like or even worse, the guy who knows that if he hits well below his belt, like his weight, he's going to get her in and out of bed within like 6 hours. Right? You're not going to get that from him.
Yeah.
Like, he just has no interest in you. You could take that dude and you be replaced by a fleshlight attached to a human female circulatory system. He wouldn't care. I guess maybe there would be an element of conquest, but he doesn't. There's no specificity in his interest in you, right? And this is what women are doing. They're replacing being seen, the thing that they say is most important in their entire life. They're replacing it with chasing, being, I don't know what the relational web does. They'll never see you, period. Other women will never do this. They're not equipped for it, nor are they willing to give it to you. Let's be honest. They'll be friendly, they'll be warm, but they are not going to see you. And the only place you get that from is a man who's bonded to you. That's it. You get one shot, maybe two, if the first shot dies. But other than that, you get like one shot. The average woman gets one shot, and they are wasting it on being a mobile, self-cleaning fleshlight for Chad. You are the fleshlight that removes itself at the end. He doesn't have to deal with cleaning you. He doesn't have to deal with storing you. He doesn't have to deal with any uncomfortable questions. He doesn't have to feel like a loser because, it's sort of more social. But yeah, that's what you're exchanging for, ladies. The thing you want most, you're giving up in favor of chasing being a convenience for a man who will never give a crap about you at all. Or a relationship with another woman who is categorically incapable of giving you what you want. So you both will get into a death spiral of trying to extract a thing neither of you can give each other. And you wonder why lesbian relationships are the most violent, the most sexually and physically violent, and end in divorce the most. Okay, let's keep going.
Yeah. All right. Let's keep going. So one conclusion has been that since we lack effective countermeasures, we should just adapt to the inevitable collapse. Sherbeck suggested we focus on personal fulfillment for the people who remain, while Bainbridge proposed we get ready for a future as cyborgs. This scholarly bewilderment. How is that scholarly? It's over, guys. I have concluded it's over. Let's be cyborgs. That sounds like.
And again,
never mind.
And
yeah,
again,
go ahead.
Like, we could stop doing the thing that's made this a problem, huh? Like, it's like everybody's in a car, like a bus. We're all in a bus, and we're all headed towards a cliff. And the people who are deciding where we like, we're the ones who are navigating and driving are all like, look at the cliff. What could we possibly do to stop ourselves from going over the cliff? There are no options. Maybe what we should do is build wings or learn to just live life flat. We will end up splatting on the rocks below. We'll just learn to enjoy that. Why don't you just stop the bus?
One guy stood up and said, well, I guess we're just going to go. That's it. Let's just make life comfortable for as many people on the bus as possible. And another guy stood up and said, I'm going to merge the drive shift with my arm. I'm going to join. Let's merge with the bus. Let's become cyborgs. those were the, what do they say? The academics that said that, the fucking demographic experts.
Oh, also we could bring more people on the bus. Surely that will stop it, even though they'll just share our trajectory.
Good Lord.
Oh, or yeah, these are our thought leaders, guys. Nobody's saying, like, why don't we stop the bus? And if we can't stop, why don't we turn the wheel? Huh? Could we do that?
Yep.
Nobody but us chickens. But
It's
the funny
yeah.
thing is that the academias recognize that this is a problem. The billionaires recognize this is a problem. A good amount of the politicians are starting to recognize this is a problem. Right? We're all, for the most part, all of the people on the edge of this problem are recognizing it, but they can't do the obvious. They can't be like, yeah, let's just stop the bus. Everybody get off.
Okay. A couple things. I got a super chat and I see a message here. So Richard 24777 gives us $4.99 in pounds and says, "Have you watched my interview?" No, sorry, I have not seen it. I don't know where to look for it. Did you link? You should drop it in the Discord server and tag us in it or something. And the Great Indoor says that he's having an issue with the Feed the Badger website. He's getting a 502 bad gateway message.
Oh, good
So
Lord.
we might have to look at that. If you're going down the wrong path, the correct move is to turn around. Yeah. Well, no one. But the thing is, I think ultimately it comes down to this: these people don't have a solution because they're morons, or they don't want to solve the problem because solving the problem would mean addressing the woman question, and they can't do that. They have to because you see the thing begins right. The article began under the just like flat out presumed the presumption that the liberation of woman is good. So because they began with that and they didn't even question it, they didn't question what that meant. They didn't question what the downstream consequences of that might be. They didn't question what it meant to like give women absolute control, like birth control, what that might have done, whatever. They didn't ask what it meant when women entered the sort of corporate job market en masse. I know women have always worked. I'm saying like becoming wage slaves like men en masse and what that meant. They didn't none of that stuff could be questioned. So we can't go back that far. We have to like look at it right now. And right now it looks like men are the problem. Like that's how that's what they're doing.
Well, literally, you
So
can't accept any other potential source of the problem. Like you've categorically closed any potential like other source of the problem. It can only be men. That's the only thing that everybody can actually land on. But what I'm trying to get at is you can see that it's like a dog chewing a toffee for the academics dealing with this issue and the billionaires, and they all recognize it's a problem. And they just can't admit who's creating it. They just don't have the cojones to be like, and literally you can see the causal relationship. How were men marginalized? How did that happen? How did the relationship between men and women become so radioactive? Where did that come from?
How is it even possible that men could be marginalized? That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that's kind of what they're operating under, right? My man, what? Again, all of the stuff that we have today that we're at now, it's all presumed to have been good, and that this whole like continuing the human race thing, it's just kind of like an unfortunate side effect, a necessary one, because we liberated women, you see. Yeah. And that's the most important thing.
So why can't we have all of the things that cause the birth rate to crater and a society where the birth rate doesn't crater? God damn, man, get on that shit. What is wrong with you? Why are you failing?
It's like those experimental meds that they're always advertising where they tell you, this thing will solve like diabetes, but a side effect is also diabetes.
Diabetes?
Yeah. Potential side effects may include diabetes.
God, guys, right. You guys are listening here? Like, why haven't you figured this out, man? Like, why haven't you figured out? Like, they want a society in which everything that craters the birth rate exists, but the birth rate doesn't crater. Why haven't you solved this problem, men? Why haven't you fixed this? Fix it. Okay, let's go.
All right. Senior Sticks gave us another super chat for $5 and said, Allison, history has proven that for most ladies, they need a first marriage, then divorce. Most young ladies are less uncertain on the second marriage. I'm not sure if that's a joke or not, but
Mm.
okay. So back to this. This scholarly bewilderment contributes to many nations mostly ignoring the existential threat or misunderstanding the relevant contributors to low fertility. Others have experimented with pro-natalist policies such as increasing financial transfers to families or restricting women's reproductive freedoms, mostly without achieving significant results. Norway appointed a birth rate committee, but its suggestions and insights added little to the discussion around how to understand and solve the fertility crisis. Among the factors that in the past century drove the decline from high to low fertility were reduced child mortality, urbanization, gender equality, and reliable contraceptives. Main contributors to the continuing decline to ultra low fertility are increasing singledom and delayed relationship formation. Well, why are they delayed? Is it because women are going to school for like 10 years? Okay, these Fotisk found, these other guys, Thompson, Ramo, Fotisk, found that the time spent in a union during the reproductive lifespan is a key determinant of cumulated fertility. No way.
Exactly what I said. Exactly what I said. Literally, you need to get women in relationships with men. Otherwise, you are not going to solve this. You cannot go against millions of years of accumulated evolution, my friends. That is a losing proposition. Okay, what's going to happen is everything that impedes the process of human reproduction is going to go bye-bye. So you can kiss everything. You can kiss dating apps, you can kiss feminism, you can kiss your advanced civilization goodbye if you do not solve this problem correctly and not just keep blaming men and keep refusing to acknowledge where it's coming from. Okay? You do not, like, this is literally, you are trying to start a fight with millions of years of evolved evolution, like evolution. We're talking about shit that knows, like, the, what is it? It was there when the spells were written. You know?
I was there when it was written. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that was there when it was written. Everything was written down. It does not care. It does not care. And the best you can accomplish with this nonsense is the annihilation of the human race. Congratulations. I mean, species go extinct all the time. The pandas appear to be going extinct for precisely the same reason. They don't breed, right? But we are conscious enough that we can identify the correct factors that are getting in the way of our breeding and get rid of them. And one of them is that women are not pair bonding. They're not achieving the precondition for fertility. And what is the solution of these people? Make that worse. Oh, well, we'll just root around men. Yeah, well, unfortunately, okay, here's how it works. Okay, evolution makes it so that a female requires a male to reproduce. And the more difficult the raising of the resultant offspring is, the more the female relies on the male. And I'm going to inform everybody that the human offspring are the most difficult offspring to bring to maturity in the entire world, bar none, which means the female relies on the male even more than any other female on the planet. So what do you think is going to become a precondition for her to breed? Having a bonded male partner. And without it, she is not going to be in position on any level to want to have children. Maybe accidentally she'll get knocked up with Chad if she's extremely marginal. Like, there's always been extremely marginal women in the world who end up having children outside of wedlock because they just are marginal. Apparently there's a certain association with sociopathy in women and large amounts of children. Okay, I'm just putting that out there. So there are female sociopaths who produce large amounts of children outside of wedlock. Right? They've always existed. We don't want that. Okay, because that's where male sociopaths come from. What we want It's women forming relationships with men and having access to the kind of fertility that married women have. Okay, and there was a comment like a month or so ago where someone was saying that married women don't have children, that it's education. No, it isn't. And it's never been, especially for Northern Europeans. Labor participation and education have never had as much of an impact on fertility for Northern Europeans as marriage formation, in particular. And the reason why is because in the weird cultures, right, that's the Northern European cultures, the ones that are presumptively the most advanced. I know that's a
You mean
very
like enlightened, like morally and socially
no, not
enlightened? Is that what
like
you mean by advanced?
maybe, but just mechanicist, just in terms of innovation.
Hmm.
Northern Europeans have a unique pattern to the way that they do reproduction. They have actually, like throughout their history, at least under the church, they did have a higher amount of celibacy. So there was more monks, more nuns, more maiden aunts and bachelor uncles and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But and also they got married later, not as late as we do now, but like mid 20s to mid to late 20s. This has been the pattern for Northern Europeans for centuries. And what they did is they replaced early marriage and almost universal marriage with highly increased fertility in marriage. So, for example, in East Asia, almost everybody got married, but nobody had sex in marriage. That's not how the Europeans do, the Northern Europeans do. You would have a long courtship, right? So, and it would be the church established, and this is what I was laughing at when you said that we're the first culture that established consent for women. That's ridiculous. The church did, right? The church replaced this kind of like elder kin selecting your partner with the man and the woman selecting each other. Like this is an innovation that the church did. It was actually really a radical change that the Christian church did, which is to have these long-term courtships, to have the man and the woman select each other. And that ended up producing and they know, like if you listen to how Christians describe this stuff, they know exactly what they're doing. That produces bonds of unusual depth and sexual intensity. And when you do that, you end up with fewer married couples, but those married couples are like averaging 6 children each, right?
Yeah.
Because they have the drive to reproduce, a higher drive to reproduce. And that's how Northern Europeans did. What ended up happening is you end up with children with a lot more resources. It's a very K type strategy. So each child has a ton of resources. They have resources from their mother and father, who usually spend the time acquiring resources or skills in their early 20s. In particular, the father will likely have established a bunch of coalitions, like be part of not communist communes, but the communes that they had in the Middle Ages, and guilds and societies and that kind of thing,
Sure.
and militias, right? So you have that extended period of time where both parents are gathering resources, both socially in terms of skills and in terms of material resources. Plus, you have all of the other relatives who remain celibate, and you have that all pouring into the two that are producing a ton of children very quickly. And that's how the Europeans did, the Northern Europeans. Very K, like high amounts of resources pouring into fewer children, but well, not fewer children, but like more focused on, and that's how they did. So it's like this whole idea that it's education or labor participation that reduces women's fertility. It's not, especially not for Northern Europeans. It's the lack of properly forming marriage bonds. We abandoned that, and now we're not forming marriage bonds the way we did in our tradition, which itself was a radical departure from any other culture on the planet. Like most cultures, everybody marries their cousin, and it's arranged by their dad and their mom. In Northern European, even in Israel, they do it that way. In Northern European, you go, you find your partner. So you're probably, what they found is in like Northern European, the immune differences between a man and a wife, like a husband and a wife, are far higher than anywhere else in the world. So Europeans, Northern Europeans, go and they find somebody who is going to produce much healthier children, because under the Christian model, you make the choice, and people tend to choose, if they're not on birth control, a partner with an immune profile that will enhance their own, right? So there's a whole confluence of factors. And again, especially for Northern Europeans, we have to get back to, or move forward with, an informed understanding of how we form pair bonds, right? And honestly, like when I say Northern European now, pretty much that's everybody who's gotten folded into that culture in like the US. So
Sure.
like most of the black people in the US are part white, right? They're
Yeah.
very much part of that culture. Especially the ones who aren't engaging in, let's say, less desirable behaviors. You know, so it's bigger now than it was. It's not as exclusive, but it also just points to what the real problem is. And again, it's not female labor force participation, and it's not women's education. It's the fact that we've abandoned how we historically arranged our pair bonds. And we have instead embraced a philosophy, I don't want to call it philosophy, an ideology that pathologizes it. Okay. All
All
right,
right.
I'm done.
Back to this.
Yes.
Not surprisingly, when fewer women and men pair bond, there are fewer couples who reproduce. Again, this is an academic paper telling us this. This is like fucking high IQ stuff, guys. Did you know that? Did you know that when fewer men and women pair bond, there are fewer children? I know you didn't know that. Boom, you just got educated. I got a super chat from Gary Thomas for $5 again. He says, the bright side, pandas are no longer an endangered species. A slight uptick in births has upgraded them from an endangered to a vulnerable species. All right. Thank you. Yeah, because we got our priorities together. I wonder if the distant space rocks or bacteria are reproducing at the correct rates. We have to concern ourselves with those numbers. Gary Thomas gives another super chat for $10. Thank you, Gary, and says, also, how true is the idea that East Asians don't make whoopee after marriage? I've heard it before, but not sure of its truth. And where do the children come from then?
It's statistical. The children come from the fact that everybody gets married. So if you have a Northern European society where, let's say, 80% of people get married, or even 60%, because there was a pretty high rate of celibacy, and like Newton wasn't that unusual. And it isn't actually that unusual, cat ladies and eternal bachelors for our culture. That's not that unusual. What's unusual is that it's really reduced the amount of women who end up married. But let's say you got 60% of the population marries, but once they get married, they have like 6 to 10 children, right? And then you look at like 90% of the population gets married, but they only have 2 to 3 children, right? Do you see that one is going to end up overall with greater fertility and one is going to end up with less? And what's happening in East Asia is, or at least historically, is they did have almost universal marriage along the same lines as I've been talking about, which is elderkin selected and likely cousin marriage. But they didn't reproduce, or they didn't produce as much offspring in their marriages, which likely means that they weren't engaging in the preconditions that lead to offspring, if you know what I mean. Whereas the European couples were. And the way that Christian courtship is arranged is that And I've looked at this in terms of the endocrine architecture. It's arranged in such a way that you maximize the like the hormonal intensity of eventual consummation. So it really deepens the bond, and I would say eroticizes it considerably more than any other form of courtship. Like just meeting your prospective bride on the day of your marriage isn't going to do that. Having it arranged by your elder kin isn't going to do that. Marrying your cousin isn't going to do that, because there's going to be like immune system incompatibilities there because they're too close. That's why we tend to be exogamous. That means we look outside of our natal group for a partner. It's because we want to get that immune diversity, which increases our fertility and increases the health of our offspring. So that's what the Christian courtship model is maximizing: the health of the offspring, the sexual intensity of the relationship. That's what they don't talk about. But based on my architectural reading, they are literally creating the deepest well of hormonal intensity on consummation of any other form of courtship. So essentially, they just the Christian courtship's aim is to create two people who are intoxicated with each other. That's what it does. And there is no sexual experience that is going to be as deep and profound and as intense as what they're creating. Like, there's no technique that can compare to it. There's no like, because technique is just basically nervous system stimulation, whereas this is hormone maxing, and there's nothing that can compare to that. So, and the benefits of it, and probably why the Christian version of marriage, which is really what caused everybody to convert, really, is that it has these inherent bonuses to the people who engage in it. So, and there's the question, right? So the question I'm answering is, why did the Christian system convert so many people in Europe when the previous system would have had incredible, like, social entrenchment, if you think about it, because it was the linear system. Like, it was the way that you kept property in a family, in a clan, in a tribe. So there would be a huge incentive to keep to the cousin marriage, to the polygamy, the polygyny, to all of the things that they were practicing before Christianity. So what was the incentive for these people to convert? And I think this is my hypothesis. The incentive was the honeymoon, was the fact that the Christian system was more sexually, erotically, and emotionally, and in terms of the intensity of the bond, was more intense. Like, it was more enticing. So that was the conversion point. That was the conversion benefit, like the sales pitch.
Sure.
As opposed to what it usually is that the Christians came in, they forced everybody. So yeah, all of the, like, Friar Tucks, they all forced everybody at the point of a stave and a flagon of beer. That's what happened. I don't think so. I mean, yes, in some cases the lords were the ones who converted, and then they forced everybody else to convert. But that wasn't always the case. Often it was from bottom up. So how did that happen? How did they make this universal conversion of a marriage system from one to the other, right? And that's my hypothesis. They knew what they were doing, and they sold it to the young people, just like rock and roll. Okay,
makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. Similar increases are found across low fertility nations. This trend seems not to have reached saturation. By one estimate, 45% of American women aged 25 through 44 will be single in 2030. Supporting the link between this global relationship recession and declining fertility, Byrne Murdoch demonstrated how several nations show an observable association between reduced pair bonding and declining fertility rates. In his analysis, periods in which countries experienced temporary increases in partnership formation tended to coincide with corresponding rises in fertility. Norwegian fertility and single rates show a similar co movement over time. It varies, however. How much of a certain period's decline in natural fertility is explained by a reduction in pair bonding. Several counteracting or heterogeneous factors operate simultaneously. The most recent Nordic fertility drops were primarily caused by reduced fertility within relationships, while Australian and East Asian fertility declines were predominantly caused by increasing single rates. Despite
Okay,
notable contextual differences, higher singlehood is robustly associated with lower fertility.
okay. Do they count lesbian relationships in with heterosexual relationships in Norway? Do they disambiguate those?
I don't know.
Like, if they don't, then I can tell you where some of the lowered reproduction within relationships is coming from. But I have to look at it more closely.
I got a super chat from Senior Sticks for $5 again. He says, marriage is always about combining resources. Cousin marriage is common. Christian marriage is bunk. Christian conversation was about control. And then puts not all in parentheses.
Okay, but again, the Christian form of marriage formation ended up out competing the cousin form of marriage formation, the cousin kin form of marriage formation. Right. And honestly, the Christians never, maybe there was a situation where they would appeal to a lord, but they didn't go into these situations using military force. It was always persuasion. And then maybe they would persuade someone who was able to use military force. Okay, so that's and if you can explain how they managed to convert entire societies from cousin polygamy kin-based system to this more, I guess, modern form of relationship formation, I'm all ears. Let's continue.
All right. Antinatalist attitudes seem not to contribute significantly to low fertility. Only 3% of European women aged 18 through 40 consider zero children the ideal family size. In Norway, women on average report a preference for 2.4 children, but have only 1.4. Such fertility gaps between desired and actual offspring are common in low fertility nations. Americans consider the ideal family size to include 2.7 children, but their fertility rate is 1.6. Testa found that European women on average want 2.2 women or children, with lack of the right partner being the most frequently cited reason for not achieving intended fertility.
Okay, so can we not take that as the actual problem? Right? Okay, so women want 2.4 children if they find a partner. And what's happening is we have a social ideology that makes them believe that the average man is an appropriate partner. Right? So because he is like the relationship is recast of one of like mutual support and something like an instinctive kind of mutual understanding, but also satisfaction, into a status competition in which a woman will only submit if she gets, she gets his bag and her bag and everybody's bag. You got to pile all those bags on the table before she's going to submit to being subordinate to a man in a heterosexual relationship. You see how that hypergamy comes right out of what feminists frame heterosexuality to be? And then the other thing is that, again, the Northern European pattern has always had female labor force participation, acquiring of resources, education. It hasn't lacked fertility until feminists bombed the site of pair bonding. Like they turned it into something radioactive. And then suddenly we have a fertility problem. Suddenly we have a pair bonding problem. Like we're looking at all of these other factors, and we didn't have a problem before then, right? We didn't have a problem until feminists got their hooks in there and started tearing it apart and started presenting heterosexuality as a source of status competition. And then you have women who don't want to engage in it because they think that they're in an eternal fight with a man, which sounds like it's exhausting. Or they think that the only, like, if they're going to have to submit, he better sweeten the deal well beyond what the average man can do. Like, and feminists literally said, we're here to destroy that. We're here to destroy heterosexuality. We're here to destroy marriage, right? We're here. That's what we're here for. And then they did. And everybody's like, how did that happen? And then we're blaming things like women's education, women's work. Well, women who are always educated and they always worked. Don't look at what feminists say about the world and agree with it and assume that they are right. They're 100% wrong. And it also hides their influence. If everybody's blaming women's workplace participation or their education for lowered fertility, then we don't blame feminism, do we? We don't blame the women who literally said, we're going to destroy human pair bonding. We're going to turn it into a status competition, which will make the average woman not want to engage in it, or be unable to sustain it, and also want men to sweeten the deal beyond what the average man is capable of. Like, we're tilting at windmills when we look at this other stuff. When we look at advanced age in terms of marriage, well, Northern Europeans always did that. Women's labor participation, Northern Europeans always did that. Women's education, Northern Europeans always did that. Certain amount of celibacy, Northern Europeans always did that. So what's happening now? And what's happening now is feminism and government intervention. Like, that's it. And if you want to go back to like cousin marriage and kin arrangement, then embrace our immigrant overlords, because they're bringing it. Like, that's what they're bringing.
Yep.
Like, embrace Sharia law. Embrace the poop street. Okay, guys? Like, you want Northern European culture, or do you want like Southeast Asian culture? Which do we want here? Make your choice. If you don't like church marriage, you don't get the benefits of Northern European culture. If you want to go back to cousin marriage and elder kin polygamy, polygyny, then we get the poop street, right? We get the constant
You're going
tribal
to end up
warfare.
with a caste system, and
you're going to end up with, and not a British caste system. Like,
no,
you're going to get all of the fellow travelers of marrying your cousin based on what your mom told you to do. Okay, all of it. You're going to get the whole spread. So make your choice. And I'm not saying we have to necessarily be like Jesus is king. We just need to understand what Christians did and what the church did and what the church accomplished, and maybe give them like some benefit for the fact that the culture that is a direct descendant of everything that they did was so successful. Maybe a little bit of credit there. And again, we don't have to like go into the whole religiosity thing. Just give credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Brian.
Okay. So I think you basically said what needed to be said about that. When women struggle to secure a long-term partner in their 20s, they have their reproductive window shortened, and many end up childless. These dynamics suggest that trying to increase pair bonding rates is the obvious way forward for nations hoping to avoid a demographic collapse. Unfortunately, experts are unsure also of the psychological causes behind reduced pair bonding. Among their suggestions for what explains the decline in relationships are dating apps, political polarization, a preference for singlehood, individualism, materialism, attachment issues, social media use, economic inequality, and poor flirting skills. Not flirting skills, okay. Those elements could all play in, but we argue that our era's dramatic reduction in pair bonding has deeper roots. It is grounded in our history as a species, and thus we can take an evolutionary psychological approach to the complex mating malaise that is afflicting a growing number of nations. Through investigating the 6 million year history of hominin mating, we discuss the functions and sex differences of Homo sapiens' short and long term sexual strategies, which are the foundations of today's maladaptive mating. We then use these insights into human mating psychology to analyze men's and women's behavior on dating apps and in other dating contexts.
Oh, good Lord. So we can't, of course, you know who's conveniently omitted from the list? The ideology that explicitly said it was going to destroy pair bonding. You notice that? They just skip over that. And the pervasive adoption of it in everything, government, corporation, academia, NGOs, political systems, everywhere. It's been adopted and become primary. Divorce lawyers love it, by the way. So
Yeah.
you would think that that would be a sign, if divorce lawyers love your ideology, that you aren't for human pair bonding, like you aren't actually promoting it. But no, it might be like a moment where you'd be like, are we the baddies? Divorce lawyers seem to love us. Are we the baddies? Like, no, that never, didn't even stop, just kept rolling along, right? But yeah, we can't even identify that. We can't even start there, or even not even start there, just maybe have it as part of the list. You notice that, Brian? Just completely skipped over.
Mm-hmm. I think we got another. Did I see another super chat or something? No, I didn't. Oh yeah, no, I did. A super chow. Dark
Yeah,
Yukimura got a super chow through, so I guess that's working now, or
or something.
okay. And says for $5, could watch it from the start today. Will watch it in full after it's done. Also, lifetime alimony was just abolished in Turkey. Let's celebrate. Well, that's good. That's good. Okay. So, yeah, back to this. Based on these investigations, we argue that the modern world's uniquely resource rich and gender equal environments have triggered what we term a mating equilibrium shift, possibly a main driver of today's declining pair bonding and fertility rates in many nations. Female freedoms and material prosperity seem to motivate women to place greater emphasis on short term strategies, non bonded mating. But in terms of reproduction, these strategies are rendered maladaptive by contraceptives. Low
Okay, I'm
fertility.
going to get in here.
Yeah,
I'm going
go
to
ahead.
get in here. Okay, women always had resources, and they were always developing resources, especially in Northern European cultures. So this doesn't explain it at all. Female freedoms and material prosperity. What do they mean by that? Right? Women almost always had freedom commensurate with the ability to create a safe and comfortable environment. So if a culture was able to create a safe and comfortable public commons, women would be allowed to move about in it and pursue business. You see that in Rome, in the Roman culture, like ancient Rome. Women were building businesses in ancient Rome. They were like 30% of the owners of brick foundries, and even higher percentages in more female dominated businesses like tailoring or um, fabric making and beer and food production and butchery. Like, this has always been the case, that women had as much freedom as their men could afford to give them. And material prosperity, like, when did it stop where women were capable, were inheritors? Like, when did the wealthy widow thing, like, this is not a thing throughout history? Of course it was a thing throughout history. In the Roman system, when daughters inherited equally with sons. So, and many European cultures are based on Roman law. Common law is also based in large part on Roman law. So where are they getting this idea that female prosperity? I'm sorry, like, there were very rich women throughout history that still got married and had children. Consider Eleanor of Aquitaine, you know? Consider
Mm-hmm.
Queen Victoria. Like, this is ridiculous. And what they're doing is they're trying to associate the loss of human pair bonding with things that they consider non-negotiable virtues, which are bullshit. Feminism didn't give women the ability to have businesses and gain education. Okay? If you look at the current educational system, prior to universities used to be this weird fringe thing. And women got involved in universities once getting involved gave more benefit than it took. Because for a long time, universities had to build up a reputation, and they did so by the men being involved in them, doing things that people were interested in and found valuable. So men got involved in the university system, they built up the reputation, they built up the value. And then when participation in the university system gained the person participating more value than it took in terms of expense, women got involved, which is the usual record of all of human history. We don't need feminism for that. We just need male nature, because usually men are building these things in order to benefit women to some degree down the road, either as their wives or sometimes directly as their students. So there you go. You don't need feminism for that. This is assuming that feminism is responsible for these virtues, and these virtues are in direct opposition with human pair bonding. So what they're constructing is a false dichotomy. In order to retain the virtue of female education and the virtue of female employment and women having resources, which everybody agrees throughout all of human history was important, unless you're talking about the French. All right, but let's not talk about the French. They're weird. Okay? Everybody agreed that women having resources was important, even in Sumer. Like the ancient Sumerian kings were like, we're going to give legal provisions for widows, right? Because we think, and also dowry for girls that are poor, because we think giving resources to women is important. Like this is a universal throughout all of human history. 100%. And they are trying to pretend like this is a feminist virtue and that we can't have this virtue and we can't see women being educated and women having resources. We can't have that and pair bonding. Do you see what they're doing here?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then they wonder why everything gets worse. Because the truth is that women having resources and women having education was never in opposition with female pair bonding, at least definitely in Northern European cultures, probably likely true everywhere. Right? They're making these false dichotomies. They're forcing a choice in order to prevent the actual solution, or to forestall the actual solution, or even recognizing the actual solution. Because once you acknowledge that most human societies wanted women to have resources and the means to build those resources and enjoy those resources and receive those resources from their families and use those resources to build families of their own, and that they also were okay with women's education, which is why a lot of elite women got a lot of education, right? They were all okay with that. Then you have to realize that something else must be wrong, right, with our society. And it's not that women are working. Because do you think that in a hunter-gatherer society, women didn't work or didn't have material resources? No. Do you think that throughout all of human evolution that women didn't have material? No. Material resources. Do you think that they didn't have whatever education was required for them to navigate their environment? No. That was always an eternal, that is a constant throughout human history. And it is a constant that those societies wanted to give those things to their women. So something else changed. And when you point to those things and then you say, well, feminism made those things, which it didn't. Human nature makes those things, right? And then you say, well, those things are the problem. You're basically saying to everybody, well, in order to have children, you have to all become demons. You have to all defy the fundamental desires that you have to make sure that your daughters are educated and have resources and are protected through the process of reproduction. You have to deny that in order to reproduce. And this false dichotomy is why our reproduction is being destroyed. And this false dichotomy is created by feminism and also people like this perpetuating it. Okay.
All right. I
I
got
have
a
a bit of
super
a headache.
chat. It's okay. And then I'm going to read some more. So Mr. Newbid gave us $5 and said Simone and Malcolm found extreme European birth rate dropped after industrialization started and less working from home, from like TFR 11 to 8. I don't know what the TFR 11 to 8 stands for, but yeah, we talked about that on this channel too. I mean, industrialization did, but we were still like above replacement rates. So and it was only industrialization that allowed feminism as a movement to like grow as well, because it was happening around the same time, I think. So I wouldn't blame industrialization, because I think that there are plenty of people who are doing just fine in the modern world, and we're still living in the best time in history. It's just that women, well, that's it. It's just that women.
Yeah, well, it's that women have been sold a bill of goods.
Yeah.
They've been sold a bill of goods, right? And they don't realize, they've been told that they have to adhere to this destructive belief system that encourages them to engage in the worst choices about their own lives, or they're going to be taken advantage of by men. And yet what they describe wanting, being seen, they can only get from men. And yet feminism insists that men, that's the thing that feminism insists most on, that men will never actually see women. You will never be seen by a man. So when a man pair bonds with you, it's about you being an object, not a person, not somebody who is seen with absolute fidelity. And who someone who will grow to love every things about you that the social web would never acknowledge as acceptable, right? Like like you can only ever be seen by a man who loves you. And feminism insists to women that men can never love them and that they can never get that from men. And then we wonder why pair bonding is going into a nosedive. And it is women, it's women who are getting suckered into this nonsense. And they are they are reaping the whirlwind of misery because of it. All right.
Also, one last thing about this too. They say that the female freedoms and material prosperity seem to motivate women to place greater emphasis on short-term strategies, non-bonded mating. So this only operates under the assumption that, firstly, children don't need fathers. So they're basically like, we'll just have them. And that, secondly, and more importantly, that children don't need like a lot of support when they're born. Like human beings are not like, foals, like horses. Horses like that are born are walking within like what, a few minutes. Like deer that are born, they start walking around shortly after they're
Yep.
born, and they're basically like
Yep.
on their own. Humans, we don't work that way. Like babies, our infants are vulnerable for like a year at least, right? I mean, like they remain vulnerable for a long time. So you
No, they're
need
vulnerable. Like
people. Yeah, go ahead.
children can't keep up with adults until they're probably like maybe 10, 9, 10.
Yeah. So you got to invest
So
a tremendous amount of time. They
yeah,
require a
just to
tremendous
get
amount
to
of investment.
just
Okay.
to get to the point where they can keep up to you physically. That's not even full like maturity in terms of tool use, skills, and being useful
Yeah.
to the group, fully useful to the group, or reproductive maturity. Like that takes even longer. And for reproductive maturity for humans involves a lot of social skills, and so they like human children are the most difficult children to get to the point of reproducing themselves on the
Yeah.
planet. Like our life cycle is insanely difficult. And that would explain why women want a pair bond before they're willing to even embark upon it. And the idea that female freedoms and material prosperity seem to motivate women to place greater emphasis on short-term strategies. No, it's just a dysfunction, right?
Yeah, this is a terrible strategy. This is like a
It's not a
civilization ending
strategy.
strategy. Yeah.
It's not a strategy. It's a dysfunction. Like they've turned sexuality into a status competition, and they basically, like, the entire hookup culture is a dysfunction. I'm sorry, guys, it's a dysfunction. And I know this is going to be like the much refuted sex at dawn people. Like, this is like sex at dawn is nonsense. And one of the most plain and simple empirical bits of evidence that prove that human beings are not promiscuous and never intended to be is literally the STD load, the sexually transmitted disease load. Chimpanzees who are promiscuous breeders have a immune adaptation to dealing with that. They don't have STDs like we do. We have STDs like a population, like they hit us like a nuclear bomb because we were never intended to be screwing around to this degree. And I know
Yeah,
that might
20% of all
offend,
women have STDs.
that's probably
I
offensive to
mean,
people.
yeah.
And if we were, I don't even know if there's like gregarious promiscuous species, but if we were intended to act in this way, our immune systems would have evolved to control it. And that's the problem. It hasn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were not, we were.
Allison, your mic is breaking up a lot right now.
Oh, really? Huh, interesting. I might
Yeah.
be having, there's a bit of rain out there, so maybe, is it been breaking up all this time?
No, it just started, but it's fine now.
Okay. Well, what I was
Oh,
saying,
there
so
goes
the
again.
okay, well, maybe just read some more. I think I got
All
conveyed
right.
my information.
All right. Low fertility societies have thus entered what we call the post pair bonding fertility trap, in which too few stable couples form early and durably enough to sustain replacement level fertility. This trap is a consequence of the female choice fertility paradox, when women's free mate choices combined with economic independence and effective contraception, it
Nonsense.
systematically favors mating strategies that undermine pair bonding and in turn realize fertility.
No, no.
Allison, I
What they're
can't.
doing is
What? You're breaking up a
what?
lot. Do you have like is there like a storm or something? Like,
Yeah,
let
it's
me see your,
probably,
let me see if your connection is good. I mean, your
it
connection
might
seems
be.
okay. I don't know if it's like your microphone. Um,
Um,
Go ahead.
okay, well, I might be able to. I'll just
You sound
stop
fine
rambling there.
now. You sound
Okay.
fine now.
All right, it might just be, it might, I don't know. Maybe it's some kind of interference that's going on. If I sound fine now, I will continue. This is ridiculous. Again, and this is why I bring up the fact that women worked in the past and they had education in the past. The feminism didn't create that. What feminism created was this idea that heterosexuality isn't a mutual project. It is a status competition between men and women in which women are oppressed. That's what happened, right? So the idea that, and the other thing is that the church already created women's free mate choice. Unless you were a princess, like you were generally freely choosing your mate. Like that's the thing that the one of the things that the church did. It replaced, again, elder kin selection and marrying your cousin with being able to choose your own partner. And that didn't, like, the families that were formed that way through women's free mate choice and extended courtship in the church's model were highly fertile, and it didn't impede pair bonding. Okay, so this is all wrong. They're creating a forced dichotomy and saying, well, unless we want to rape women and keep them chained to the dungeon, we just can't have children. Herp derp, we just can't have pair bonds. I was like, well, that's nonsense. The church proves, and the way the church constructed marriage for centuries proves that pair bonds can exist with female mate choice. What are you talking about? And can exist with women's education. I mean, hell, if you want to talk about pair bonds and women's education, you can look at for throughout the medieval church's history, they sometimes had these experiments, or they had monasteries with mixed sex populations. Now, for the most part, they kept them apart, but they would still, interact. And you're having like monks and nuns getting married. Like first, the monastery like administration would be like, "Could you stop? Like, do some penance and then see if you can stop." And if they couldn't, then they'd just be like, "Okay, you're going to have to become lay and get married and become lay. You can still be part of the community, but you can't continue to not abstain from sex while being, having monastic vows." And that's what they do. So, and you're talking about like nuns were the most educated women in the Middle Ages, and they still got pair bond, like they still got married. They still felt the call of the wild. So and again, like this is a forced dichotomy. They're saying we either rape women and no longer educate them or allow them to have property, or we have a birth rate. So we either do horrible things that everybody's against, or we die as a species. Like they're forcing this dichotomy, and they're wondering why forcing this dichotomy is resulting in nobody getting married.
Yep.
Okay.
It's okay. This is a new and unique situation. With the post-1960s mating regimes, Western societies became the first human communities, or first large human communities, in which individual mate choice became the norm. After practicing near universal arranged marriage probably for hundreds of thousands of years, Homo sapiens were finally free to choose their own partners, whether for committed relations or casual sex. Not only do women now have free mate choice, but their professional empowerment has reduced men's utility to them, meaning that women have less need for the material resources men bring to a relationship. Consequently, women exclude more men from their pool of potential partners. Empirical research supports that when women are less dependent on men for resources, they partner up to a lesser extent. Yeah. Because they're also convinced that they don't need men. I think that's, well, whatever. Female freedoms have brought tremendous benefits to society. Oh, here's the cope. Here's the cope part, guys. Oh, this is a good thing, though. This is a good thing. Female freedoms have brought tremendous benefits to societies and to both sexes in many respects, but experts have often been reluctant to emphasize their relationship to ultra-low fertility. Some fear an anti-feminist backlash, a concern that may have contributed to a more avoidant communication strategy among fertility researchers. Their unwillingness to properly sound the alarm and engage also the politically inconvenient drivers of the fertility crisis may be the more comfortable option, but it could undermine female freedoms in the long run.
See what I'm saying? There's a forced dichotomy here.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to say that you got to abandon the things that people find valuable. And throughout history, this is what they found valuable. They want to make sure that their daughters have material resources. I mean, you look at Florence, that they voted to like legislate this, that men had to, if they had a daughter, that they had to pay into a pension fund for her, not for their sons, just their daughters. This is a thing throughout all of human history. And right back to Sumer, taking care of the orphans and the dowries of poor girls, right? So they're basically saying that everybody, if we want to reproduce, we have to disavow the things that everybody agrees are good.
Yep.
We have to
All right.
disavow being human. In order to reproduce as humans, we have to disavow our humanity. Yeah, that's a false dichotomy right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Using the Gender Inequality Index from the Human Development Report and national fertility rates from World Population Prospects, United Nations, we found a very strong correlation between gender equality and low fertility. The more gender equal a nation is, the lower its fertility rate tends to be, accelerating the pace of its demographic collapse. Such a high association needs to be considered in earnest, even if it's uncomfortable. So they're like, oh, you know, can we talk about this? I mean, it's kind of like potentially destroying everything, but can we please? This is the gender inequality index. Um, so I guess like down here you have like the lowest reproduction down in the bottom left. It's like what maybe I gotta see. Where's South Korea? That's like my North Star. Where's South Korea? They don't have South Korea here. I don't see it.
1.75.
What? Where?
South Korea is at 1.75.
Oh yeah, there it is.
No,
South Korea.
no,
Down here with the
0.75.
Netherlands. Yeah, so these places are the low end. Canada, Italy, Singapore, South Korea, you know. Even Israel made the list down here. United Kingdom, New Zealand, Japan. Japan's doing very poorly too. China, Poland, Malta. And then you go up here where it's higher. You got like the Congo, Chad, Niger, Somalia, Mali, Afghanistan. I mean, a lot of this has to do with like having enough kids because like they might die off or something. So you need to like, it's like our strategy, like our reproductive strategy, as opposed to R as opposed to the other one. But
Okay. All
even
right. So
then, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Finish your thought.
As
So I'm going to
opposed
be
to
taking
K.
some more.
Sorry. No. I'm just saying this is the chart. I don't want to spend too much time on this, but like that's basically that's what it is. But even these places are changing anyways, like we said earlier. So they're trending downward as well.
All the sub-Saharan African countries are trending downward.
Yeah.
Everywhere has the same problem. And incidentally, we have NGOs exporting feminism to all of those places. But also it might also be an effect of again, like the endocrine architecture. So the lack of V1A cross activation in women as things get more comfortable. And it might be a chicken and the egg whether or not feminism is an effect or exacerbates that. Who knows? Maybe it's even a form of correction. Like since the environment is so safe, they try to pretend men are as dangerous as bears in order to get that stress up to activate. But it seems a bit self-defeating. All right, so the paper's historical framing is wrong on the location of consent being important to pair bonding. It places free market choice at the second sexual revolution, 1750, with individual partner selection enabled by wage labor and mobility, and frames the third, 1968, is when it became fully autonomous. The medieval church established the principle centuries earlier. The sacramental theology of marriage held that the couple confects the bond. The two parties' mutual consent is the sacrament, not the family's arrangement, not the Lord's permission, not the priest's blessing, the couple's free consent. The priest is a witness, not a maker. This is the church's position from the 12th century, the same periods the paper identifies the first sexual revolution's institution of lifelong monogamy. So their first sexual revolution, which they characterize as arranged marriage, but individual mate preference is more important, actually contained the theological foundations for free mate choice. Now, this doesn't mean that in like the 12th century they weren't also practicing dowry. In fact, they probably were. The church was simultaneously imposing lifelong monogamy and asserting that the bond requires the free consent of both parties. Okay, if you look at the Song of Solomon, which is in the Bible, I did an analysis on this. It sort of presents the pair bond as prior to institutional sanction. The couple is confecting the bond, so they are the ones that are like the bond is happening to, and they are the ones whose recognition of the bond is what's most important. So the marriage is the bond is something that sort of like comes through God in the church, and then the church ratifies it, right? It doesn't create it. The institution recognizes it, doesn't create it. The paper's error is in treating free market mate choice as a product of economic modernization. The theological infrastructure was medieval. What changed in 1750 wasn't the principle, it was the practical ability to exercise it without family economic consequences. So they're taking this and they're saying, oh, well, this is the first time you were divorced from requiring an extended family to produce children. So you no longer needed to at least get their approval or their consent, right, to appropriate their resources for your reproductive project. What changed in 1968 wasn't autonomy, it was contraception severing the consequences of exercising it. The distinction matters because the paper's framework assumes free mate choice is novel and therefore psychology hasn't adapted to it. The church's position suggests humans have been exercising consent-based mate choice within institutional structures for 800 years. The novelty isn't choice, it's consequence-free choice, right? But the other thing is that this is probably even older than the church because Romans also had something similar. Like they would have dances where young people would get to know each other. So it was like in some ways it was a similar cultural landscape. And yes, elite people always controlled the reproduction of their children because it was all about resources and lineage and property and family, the benefit of the family. But for the average person, they had a lot more freedom of choosing who they were partnered with, and that's been the case for 800 years. This paper isn't recognizing historical reality in order to assert that somehow women being able to choose their partners is some new thing that happened in the last 50 years, 50, 60 years. No. And they're doing it to force the false dichotomy, which is, oh, well, if you want the human race to continue, you're just going to have to take away women's consent. Do you want to do that? And nobody's going to sign on to that. They are shaping the solution space by forcing this dichotomy. And they're shaping the solution space to the point where it no longer includes the solution. Okay, continue, Brian.
All right, I got a super chow from Richard Bier here. He gives us $5 and says, "Isn't it also a factor that in industrialized technological nations that around 10% of the population is producing the majority of the goods and services for everyone else? Let's not overlook the glamorization of the Sex and the City lifestyle and how Cosmopolitan magazine also promoted the single woman lifestyle with a writer's room staffed with married women who had families at home." Yeah, that's all feminist stuff. Like Sex and the City, that's feminist, bro. Cosmo, all those women's magazines, very much so. But okay, the industrialization, I don't know. Like Allison, do you want to take that?
Uh, yeah. That's going to be a large digression. Let's
Okay.
keep going.
All right, we're gonna keep going. We got about 10 minutes, so. All right. Based on the analysis that follows, we posit that a further individualization of reproduction could be an effective means for solving the fertility crisis. If we are unlikely to sufficiently decrease if we're unlikely to sufficiently increase pair bonding rates, policymakers should consider other means for helping women have the number of children that they themselves say they want.
You
This
see
would,
what they just did?
yes,
Okay, keep going. Yeah.
yes.
Yo, guys, in order to increase pair bonding, we would have to take away women's reproductive freedom. We'd have to take away women's right to consent. We'd have to rape women, and we'd also have to take away their ability to get education and work. It's like,
Yeah, but it's
which is
like the
every,
number that they themselves want, though. So they, that this is consent, kinda.
no, but it's the thing is that the false dichotomy is that any of these things bear on the rate. They don't. The church gave individual couples, including women, that they made it a sacrament that the woman consent to marriage, like a precondition for the church to actually recognize the marriage. Since the 1200s, and well before, incidentally, women have worked and had property, especially in Roman law jurisdictions. Gaelic law is something completely different. But again, the French are weird. We don't need to discuss them. So women have always had property. In Roman law, they inherited with equally to their brothers, right? And in those jurisdictions where men inherit more, there are social expectations that they provide for the women in their life, not just their wife, but also their widowed mother, their maiden sisters, like their spinster sisters, right? So a man who had any kind of inheritance or income would be expected to be taking care of a whole web of women, right? So again, women have access to material resources throughout all of human history, right? And they've also had access to education. So it is a complete false dichotomy to present these are the three things that you have to destroy in order to create pair bonding. You see what I'm saying? That's what
Yep.
they've done. And I'm saying that they are closing off the solution space with this false dichotomy. It's like, yeah, these are irrelevant. Again, since the 1200s, women have had free choice. They've had education, like verifiably, and well before then, most likely as well. They've had free choice. They've had free education, or they've had the ability to get educated. They've had the ability to command resources, right? And build up their own resource base. That's where dowries came from. Okay, and they still pair bonded and had children, and there was substantial fertility. And they've had all of that, including up until 1968. So everything that they're saying that causes women not to pair bond and not to have children is a false dichotomy. It has nothing to do with the issue. All it's doing is constraining the solution space and making it so that only their solution seems viable, because they're forcing everybody to either acknowledge that we have to do something nobody wants to do, which is impoverish women, which is take away their educational opportunities, which is essentially remove their right to consent, right? And very few people are going to sign on to that. Okay. And that's the only way forward to increase fertility. And that is a complete bald-faced lie. And then they offer their solution, which is what? More communism.
Yeah, of
What
course.
a surprise.
Which is essentially just making men pay into a
Yeah.
system to raise their kids for them. And raise them
Yes.
poorly, by the way.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And they're forcing this solution space by framing where the actual infertility is coming from, and it isn't coming from there. Okay? Like, honestly, guys, when women had free choice, when they had their own material goods, and if you're waiting till your late 20s, you probably have more skills, more education, and more physical resources as a woman, right? And they had their own education, right? They had all of that. They still chose to get a man and have a relationship with him. Women don't need to be in a situation of depredation to want a man. This is the assumption that feminists make, and the assumption that these people make, and they do it to justify feminism, and they do it to justify communism. That's exactly what they're doing right here. Okay.
Okay. So I got a super chat from Senior Sticks for $2. Thank you, Senior Sticks, and says human matchmaking is an occupation for a reason. All right, thank you. All right, so where was I? Based on oh yeah, no, it's right. This would entail offering women the resources necessary for them to conclude that having children alone is a better alternative than remaining childless. Today, such large resource transfers are perhaps politically and fiscally unfeasible, but nations should consider limited reproductive policy experiments to find out what social and economic resources are required to motivate sufficient individualistic reproduction. In our post automation future, perhaps as early as by 2040, Insights from these pilot projects could inform national policies with the potential to substantially increase fertility. So we're going to become cyborgs, guys, so that women can
No.
stay like super liberated,
And
whatever that looks like.
ironically, it's not super liberated because they like, this is the thing. This isn't the false dichotomy that I'm talking about. It was that the issue is not female liberation or non-liberation. The issue is that we have an entire ideology that claims that women lose everything if they get in a relationship with a man. And there are a lot of women who believe it. Like, you put women in a situation where they have, I don't even think this doesn't even happen in the cultures with the cousin marriage, right? Okay, so you take away everybody's choice. You take away the men's choice too. So you want to marry your 300-pound unibrow cousin. That's going to be your choice. And it's going to be made for you. You can't choose someone you desire. It's just basically someone in the clan who's chosen for you. All right. Everything is selected for you. No autonomous will. That's not going to change the fertility problem because India has a fertility problem. Like, all of the Middle East that practices this also has the fertility problem.
Yep.
And you know what India also has? A feminism problem. You know what the Middle East has? I know this is going to shock people. A feminism problem. Do you know what Northern Europeans have? A feminism problem. And if you really want to think that liberation and economic opportunity and education stops women from having pair bonds and having children, then you have to argue with medieval Europe, medieval Northern Europe. You have to argue with not the elite Romans, but just the mass of Romans. Like, one of the things that Rome did is it reproduced its armies. That's why, in many ways, it was very militarily powerful. And that was because its middle to lower class was highly reproductive. Its equestrian class, I think, was too for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, and again, in these societies, women did have the ability to acquire resources. They did have the ability to be educated. They did have the ability to have their own free choice. This isn't what killed them. What killed them was very explicitly what the Jews pointed out, who lived through the fall of the Bronze Age, which was women saying that human pair bonding, like men and women getting together, isn't a communal project, isn't like a cooperative complementarian project. It is, in fact, women being subordinated to men. That's the Lilith energy that I talk about. She turned a sacred act into a status contest. And the Jews recorded that as the civilization failure mode. And we are living it. So, I mean, like I said, liberation. What do you mean by women's liberation? What does anybody mean by women's liberation? Like, feminists mean that if you oppose feminism, you oppose everything good going to women.
Yep.
And I'm like, yeah, I think that you need to step out of that false dichotomy. And here they're saying, if you don't accept more government intervention, stealing from men to give to women, but also, about an 80% cut to the bureaucrats who adjudicate all of these, a little bit to the academics who justify it, the bureaucrats who manage it. Gotta make sure they get their cut from this transfer, and then whatever's left over will go to the women, and maybe they'll say they'll have more babies. They won't actually have more babies, but like, this is ridiculous. And it's all around this rhetoric around female liberation. And the fundamental idea here is not that women are being liberated to have jobs or education or make choices in their reproductive lives or choices about their partners, because they have always had that for a long time, especially in the West. The idea is that women are being liberated from being oppressed by men in marriage. They're being liberated from marriage as an oppressive institution. That's what they mean. Everything else is something that's happened in history. So what they really mean by liberation is, I don't know, women no longer have to love men, even though loving men is like $1 trillion industry for women. Like the simulation of being loved by a man and loving a man is, women pay $1 trillion to get it every year.
Yep.
I don't know. So women are being liberated by the thing they spend most on to get. I can't even give you an analogy for that, but it's so ridiculous. All right, do you want to finish up?
Well, what do we want to do? Just read this last paragraph?
Sure, we'll stop there.
Okay. Let me just double check to make sure there's no super chats or anything. All right. Such financial transfers, however, would further reduce men's utility to women and thus the mate value of some groups of men, likely
Oh,
exacerbating male marginalization. Still, the existential stakes of the fertility crisis could justify such drastic measures. Moreover, artificial womb technology might be available as early as in the 2040s, which could result in greater reproductive equality between the sexes. The following investigation leads us to conclude that the next step in human mating may entail a greater individualization of reproduction, and that gender equal, low fertility nations should prepare for this future as soon as possible.
okay. And the wink and the nod is that, oh man, we're going to create the lesbian feminist utopia where men aren't even and then we're going to have AI and robots, and we're going to make gate to woman's country, and there'll be no men, and like that's the freaking, that's the subtext here. You know what's actually going to happen if they get artificial womb technology? You're going to have the Freemason, or not the Freemason, the Knights Templar system. You're going to have coalitions of men raising children, and I don't mean gay men. And they're going to be raising children that are so freaking superior to the female, like the single mother children, that you're basically going to construct a caste system. There are going to be male raised children who will do everything, rule everything, and then there will be female raised children who fill the prisons, I guess.
Yeah.
And they don't have to be gay. Like, these guys don't have to be gay. The Knights Templar, they raised orphans, and it was just a coalition of men raising children. Right? There is historical precedent for that. You have like monks raising foundlings and stuff like that. There's plenty of historical precedent for male coalitions raising children. And that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to have super families, male coalitional super families raising highly socially adroit children, like with high degrees of skills. And then you're going to be setting those kids up out with competition with the single mother kids. They're going to be a permanent underclass. And it won't even have to be in law. They're just going to be a permanent underclass because of emotional dysregulation, because of criminality, because of poor social skills, because of poor ability to acquire skills or work within systems, complex systems. They're
Yeah.
going to be an underclass because they are literally inferior. They're inferior products. And nobody in this ridiculous article is considering the fact that men raise children better. They're going to be like, we'll liberate. Yeah, wink, nudge. Men will be liberated from women in raising children. Well, I don't know if that's a society we really want, though. I'm just saying this because I think that this is not going to play out the way their smug assumptions suggest it's going to play out if they actually manage it. Like, I don't think this is going to play out the way you think it is. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
You have anything to add to that?
No, I
Want to
think you.
correct me?
No, I think you covered everything pretty well.
I mean,
I mean,
or we could just try to get men and women back together again. We could try that.
yeah,
It's a possibility. I mean, the church probably won out because it just gave men and women a better relationship system than what was before. Like that, I honestly like there is a big gap in the scholarship, which is how did the church courtship plus individual consent system plus older no don't marry your cousin, how did this actually displace the previous system of cousin marriage and elder kin arranging everything? How did it displace it? There's a big gap in the scholarship. So that's where my hypothesis comes in, is they outcompeted it on the free marketplace of romantic love. And I know that romantic love is verboten now, but it's not the same kind as simpery, because both parties would be bringing in resources. Both parties would be expected to live up to ethical standards, be chaste, disciplined, etc. It's a bit different than what we see in modern simpery. But they outcompeted older systems because they gave a better product in terms of relationships. So maybe what we could do today is sort of take a page from that book, get a better product in terms of relationships and relationship formation. Hell, maybe you could go back to the system that actually worked. It's a thought. Anyway, did you want to add anything to that, Brandon? Because I can do
no,
the thing.
that's good.
All
I think
right. So
that's
if you
good.
want, if you want to send a message anytime after the show's over, it looks like we're going to be talking about this for a while.
Yeah, we can do a follow up and do the rest of it.
Yeah, if we even, it might take quite a few follow-ups. But if you want to send a message at any time after the show is over, you can do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. It is working now. Great indoors. You can send your message. Let me just double check to see. I'll poke the vols to see if there's anybody's messages in the back. Poking vols as we speak. Pokey. Okay. Nope. Looks like we've got both of them. So if you want to send your message, okay.
Yes.
Okay. So if you want to send your message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip, and we will address it in the next time we address this topic, which will probably be pretty soon. So once again, feedthebadger.com/justthetip. If you want more information about the things that I talk about specifically, like the endocrine framework, sometimes I bring up cognitive modalities, that kind of stuff, badgernation.online, and come and join us in the Discord, and you can ask me questions, and I put up stuff that sort of elaborates on all of my analyses. So once again, that's badgernation.online and feedthebadger.com/justthetip for those tips. I can see that Karan Strong is sending me a message, but he better do it quickly because we are leaving. We are leaving, sir. You've got like maybe a minute to finish your message. I would not suggest making it much longer. I don't know. I could see him typing, so I don't know. I could, yeah. So the next section is going to be long and short-term mating strategies.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing how they completely distort that into a false dichotomy that either like completely omits the effect of feminism. That's the big thing I noticed throughout all of this. We go through everything like, oh, well, maybe Gen Z doesn't know how to flirt, but we don't ever put the whole ideology that made heterosexuality radioactive. We never consider that to be a source of the problem. We just skip over. And then we land on, of course, the solution is more communism, more government intervention, which, you know, that'll be good for the divorce lawyers, the bureaucrats, the feminists, and then eventually maybe women will get a few bucks, and there you go. The life cycle justifies itself. Okay. All right. I can't wait anymore. Sorry, Quran Strong. Let's go. Brian, take it away.
All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we talked about on the show today, and share the video because sharing is caring. Thanks so much for coming on this episode of Maintaining Frame, and we will talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.